There in podcast world. Hope you're having a wonderful day. You're listening to or watching Service Business Mastery Podcast. I am one of your hosts, Church Blissett, sitting virtually next to my co-host, Joshua Crouch. And we have Arian on the show today with IgnitePOST. And we're going to talk a little bit about AI-powered handwritten outreach. This is a really cool concept, because the engagement I've found personally, whenever you have a handwritten letter, is massively more. I don't know the exact number. I just know that it's massively more open rate versus having something just printed off of a printer. I remember several years back when we got this fancy new printer in the office, and that thing was expensive. So of course we were going to use it, and we printed off a ton of mailers, and this thing would spit them out like it was like nobody's business. But the open rate on the handwritten reminders, and we actually would book the reminders, and these are prepaid reminders, and we couldn't get people to call us back or to book it. And but the ones that were handwritten, it felt like a doctor's office. So I'm excited to talk with you today and learn a little bit more about IgnitePOST and how you got into doing what you're doing. And of course, we're going to talk AI because that's what we do. So welcome to the show.
Well, thanks so much for having me. I'm super excited to dive in.
Absolutely. Josh, you got anything you want to add there?
Yeah, I was just going to add that. So we still do handwritten welcome notes when new clients jump on. I used to do those, and I handed out, and then I delegated it to Brittany. Now I delegate it to my marketing manager, because I've always loved the handwritten thing. It's just, if you sign up a lot of clients at one time, it's just it is not the funnest job to do.
No. And it's often the first thing that slides off your plate when you have 1,000 things going on. You're like, this can wait. And then,
that's what happened with us is we would get an influx, especially during busy times of the year for our marketing agency. And then we'd have 20 of them to do. And then all of a sudden we get caught up, and then your hands cramping. You're like, and then you're running out of things to say, because again, you got to think about what to say. And, as humans, it's weird because psychologically, we don't want to say the same thing over and over and over and over and over again, even though nobody else will know. We're just it's almost like we got to test ourselves and our ability to think because otherwise we write the same thing. We're like, this is really boring.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's to keep yourself engaged as well. And it's funny too that you mentioned it. So even kind of going back to what Church was saying before, that the number one thing and the reason why handwritten notes perform so much better than, kind of normal direct mail or printed mail or email is because that's how we're wired as human beings. A lot of time, I know we're going to get into and talk about AI and everything, which is definitely awesome. But people at the end of the day, a lot of times forget that, hey, I'm selling to another person, or I'm, providing a service for other people. And as humans, we've evolved over millennia by actually interacting with our environment and experiencing it, touching it, feeling it. That's how early humans learned, about the environment they're living in. So these things like screens and, computers, that is something that's very, very foreign to us, to our lizard brains, right? So people forget about that a lot of times, and they're just like, oh, this is so convenient. All this digital marketing and everything is super convenient and easy. But at the end of the day, one of the big reasons why just mail performs really well is because it engages your all of your senses, right? And that's going back to how humans were when, as we first evolved. And so I like to always start there and kind of remind people that this is the way that people are kind of wired to interact with things and understand things. So that's kind of one of the biggest advantages that sending something like mail has. And then when you personalize it and go a step further and send an actual piece of handwritten mail that connects you with the recipient more, where you can kind of interact, there's tactile feedback, you can run your finger over things and kind of feel like, oh, somebody actually wrote this thing out and is kind of, connected with me and has written this to me. It kind of adds that whole other element. So a lot of times people forget that.
Yeah, I got a quick question for you, because I know they don't teach cursive in too many schools anymore. Does it write in cursive, or does it write normal?
Yeah. I'll kind of give you the full overview.
There's probably a generation of people that can't read that.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, the older generation, our generation, we're taught cursive in school, but I know that most school districts have gone away from teaching cursive, which is weird because I don't know how. I guess apparently they're not going to know how to sign their name on checks at some point when they're adults.
No, they're going to go back to just writing an X.
Going to handwrite it, or carry a stamp around with them or something.
Exactly. Yeah. But to answer your question, yes. So we do have cursive handwriting styles that people can use. So IgnitePOST as a business, essentially, what we do is we help businesses create magic moments using handwritten notes. So our solution is part hardware, part software. On the hardware side, we have robots that hold real Bic ballpoint pens, and we'll actually write out a handwritten note in a handwriting style. We have a lot to choose from. So we do have some fonts that are in cursive. We also have some that are in Spanish. Most are in English. And then we have everything from very, very neat penmanship to borderline chicken scratch and kind of everywhere in between.
Is it called? Wait, is the option called chicken scratch?
That's a good point. We should just make a font called chicken scratch. That's just
would be hilarious.
Which is just a bunch of squiggles.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, so we do have a bunch of different handwriting styles that people can choose from. We also have the ability to actually take your handwriting and mimic it and duplicate it. So if anybody wants their actual handwriting used, we can actually get a sample from you and then take that and make that available. But that's kind of how the service works. So the hardware writes all the notes, and then we have a nice software layer that allows you to either execute campaigns in bulk. So we have a portal where you can log in and upload a list and kind of blast out a campaign in bulk, or you can grab one of our integrations and kind of plug it into whatever marketing automation tools or CRM system you're using and trigger just-in-time notes and trigger notes to be sent just when you need them sent.
How long does it take to build them or to write it out?
So it really varies on a lot of different things of, what you're saying in the note, what kind of handwriting style it is. So there's no one answer to that. If we're talking about writing a, 8.5 by 11, full paragraph sheet of paper, it might take a couple minutes. If you're gonna do a 5 by 7, kind of folded card here, which is kind of one of our standards, something like this, it might take like a minute or so. So okay. It just depends. There's so many factors in there.
I got a question for you. So, and I guess I've seen this more and more. I've seen more people talk about it recently because everything has gone digital. Like the trend is everybody goes digital. So now everyone, even new companies starting out, start with digital in mind, and the ways of getting leads, I guess the old way of referrals, word of mouth, yard signs, some of those other things. People are like, nobody looks at that stuff. Nobody opens it. That's at least the prevailing thought that I see is nobody goes to the mail. Nobody checks that stuff. Or I did a blast once and I got like 8 calls and I sent like 10,000 cards out.
Yeah.
And it's just
10,000 cards in return.
Yeah. Or they got a bunch returned because they got a bad list from like Info USA or something like that.
Yep.
Are you seeing where people are starting to buck the trend and go backwards? Because I know sometimes those trends come and go, and a lot of times the smart operators, at least the ones that some of the people I follow, are like they're killing it on mail, but they do mail every month too. They're not just doing it once and okay, I'll wait until I'm slow again and send another one. They're every month consistently sending things out and getting leads.
Exactly. Yeah. So a couple things. So first of all, I'm not advocating that you don't do any digital marketing and just kind of do a hard switch over to mail. In fact, we recommend the opposite. So we designed our service to work in conjunction with the existing marketing that you're doing. So we see the best results when you interleave this touch point and you use it as a touch point in kind of a more comprehensive overall strategy. So that's where we see really good results, where you might, if you're talking about leads, you might reach out and open up with a handwritten card, and then your follow-up emails and text messages and phone calls aren't just trying to give somebody the hard sell. It's hey Josh, I sent you a handwritten card last week and never heard back from you. What's going on? What the heck? That type of response gets a really that type of interaction gets a really good response, but it's designed to be used in conjunction with digital marketing and your other touch points as well. So that's the first thing I'll say. And then you hit the nail on the head as well, right? So typically in marketing, if you're trying to stand out, if everybody's zigging, you got to zag. So mail is something that, 15, 20 years ago, our mailboxes were exploding and our, email inboxes were relatively empty. Now it's completely flipped. Now, if you're an email user, you get about an average of about 120 emails in your inbox every day. Most people go through their inbox trying to delete things as fast as possible. But
we have AI bots that'll do that just go through the inbox. You got to.
Yeah. So, and so our inboxes are just massively filled, but then our mailboxes are empty. I think the oft-quoted stat is we receive a personal letter just once every 7 weeks. So that's a letter that's not like a bill, right? Or like, a mass marketing, direct mail campaign.
That seems like more frequent than the mail I get. People don't like me. I don't know.
I'll send you a handwritten letter so you don't feel left out.
All right, cool.
I promise.
So how granular can you get on this? Because I could think like let's say you do a new installation and you want to send something that's very personalized about the information that came through the job, maybe just a little bit about, because sometimes on the phone call and some of the notes you get in there's information about like their dog or their house or something unique about that customer.
Yep.
How granular are people getting with that, and or how custom are they getting with some of that stuff to really make it like, wow, somebody literally took the time to write directly to me and they're not just mass sending these to everybody?
Yeah. So first of all, just the fact that we're sending somebody an actual real penned note makes it feel super personal anyway. So it's not like an email or anything where you have to get super like in the weeds. Otherwise people think, this is just like a mass thing that you sent. So that's the first thing I'll say is you actually don't need to get too specific. Just the fact that you sent someone a really personalized, real penned letter that they can like feel like the indentation of, okay, somebody actually sat down and like wrote this with an actual writing instrument is already very personal. But now with AI and with some of our integrations, you can really go down as far down the rabbit hole as you really want. So we definitely have folks that have integrations set up where, when a job gets completed, if they have different types of jobs, they'll actually like specifically say like, okay, hey, this was like a HVAC install, or this was a plumbing job, or this was water and sewer job. So they'll be able to categorize that, and then they can actually have AI come up with like specifics about the home or any other notes that are in that account. So we definitely have folks that are doing that. I will say overwhelmingly most people don't get too fancy. They try to kind of keep it simple, and they just like, hey, thanks so much for letting us handle your electrical needs. If you need us again, here's our contact information. So you don't have to go too far down the rabbit hole just by the nature of it being a personalized, real pen and ink letter. It's very personal and you get a good response rate, but it's certainly there, and it's certainly very easy to make it very personal.
Do you ever on purpose misspell things, or like have like I feel like I've seen them before where I'm like, I'm pretty sure this was written by a machine, but there's some like grammatical errors and stuff. So
that's just because you don't know how to spell.
Yeah,
actually, no, if it's misspelled, Turch actually thinks it's spelled right. So
right, yeah. So it's totally up to our customers. We don't necessarily do that or like recommend that you just put in grammatical errors or misspellings or anything like that. But you can certainly do it. So the way that the service works is you give us the content that you want written, and then we kind of handle everything from there. So you can control if you're like, if you purposely want to insert some misspellings or even use AI for that, of like, hey, here's the message I want, but alter it slightly and like throw a couple of grammatical errors in there. You can totally do that.
And don't use any M dashes.
Exactly.
Or use a lot of them.
Yeah.
It's funny. I've seen people like, and no offense, like Dan Antonelli was one. He's a little older than we are. He's like, I grew up and I regularly use M dashes on purpose. And then of course I was reading the book I was recently reading, I'm like, man, there's M dashes all throughout this thing, because it's probably normal in books and publishing. It's probably like the right way to do it, but
Right.
nobody actually writes that way when it comes to like social media, emails, like our normal communication. So now M dashes are like the most evil thing in the world. Like everyone's like, get rid of your M dashes, otherwise everyone's gonna think it's AI.
Yeah.
And it's
what
like the
I always
stupidest thing. Like, who cares? It's a dash.
Yeah.
There's certain words I always put them in there, and I constantly catch myself not like, oh, I shouldn't put that there. Stupid chat GPT. So like what's the biggest reason contractors would be hesitant to do something like this? I mean, it's, for me, back in the day, whenever I had to handwrite those, we did a little notepad that was probably about this big right here, and it
Yep.
was it looked like a doctor's reminder.
Okay.
And it would, and we got really good engagement with those, but we hand wrote them, and we found that if we printed them off on that fancy printer, we didn't get any phone calls. But if we hand wrote them, and I was the one handwriting, the guy with dyslexia, and I felt like was handwriting all these reminders, we got amazing engagement.
Yeah.
What would be the hesitation for a contractor to not use this?
Yeah. So with anything, I think it's really about how you use it, right? How you implement it, more so than the actual technique. So to your point, really quickly though, I'm not surprised to hear about that response rate. In fact, if you compare the handwritten mail to just kind of traditional direct mail, typically handwritten mail will perform about 11.2 times better than the just printed direct mail, just from like our own studies and from our own sending and just, in general.
Yeah.
If you compare it actually to email, typically performs about 30 times better. So huge difference there. But, to your point, in terms of like hesitation and like why somebody wouldn't use this, I would say it's a different product than traditional direct mail. So if you are considering that, our typical recommendation is to not use this like traditional direct mail. So folks, I wouldn't recommend this to like spray and pray over an entire neighborhood or to kind of do the every door direct mail. That's not really like the best use for this tool. It's a more targeted, more personal outreach. So it's kind of, you think of it as, when would I actually value sitting down and actually writing out a note to someone? And those are the scenarios, and those are the times at which it performs really, really well. So what we're seeing is there's probably four kind of specific scenarios that we recommend contractors set up. And those are the kind of the playbooks that we help run when a new customer comes on board. And so, kind of going down the list, we typically start with a post-quote follow-up. So if you're going to go out and if you leave a quote at a prospective customer's home, that's a great time to follow up with a handwritten note, because you've already spent the time to go out and quote them. So following it up with a quick handwritten note that says, hey, Josh, thanks so much for letting us provide you with a quote. We've done a ton of these jobs before. Really looking forward to working with you. Here's my contact information. If you need anything, I'll reach out in a few days. With that type of experience, so we do this with all a lot of the Mr. Rooter, Mr. Electric locations all across the Midwest. Just by adding that experience afterwards, they saw about a 10% bump in jobs won, just because it differentiates you in the market, right? All things considered, because most people, when they go to get a quote, right, they're going to probably get it quoted out by a couple different contractors. So all things considered, everything's kind of in the same, price range. Who are you going to go with? Are you going to go with like the folks that just kind of like show up and hand you a quote, or the ones that follow up and say, hey, I really appreciate the time. Here's my contact information. Reach out if you have any questions, and I would love to do the job. So like that's a very easy way.
Having that personalized letter, I mean, it makes you feel a certain way. And to think that someone has handwritten it, like that makes you feel even more special, And
Exactly.
it goes back to the old adage, they don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And so it's just another way of showing people that you care.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's kind of the first major thing that we do. That's the first playbook that we run. The second playbook that we typically set up for contractors is the job completed playbook. So anytime a job gets completed, and you can kind of, again, set up filters depending on when you want an actual card to get triggered. But typically after the job gets completed, we trigger a handwritten card that's kind of more of a thank you. But there's a couple very specific things.
You're saying triggers. So do you guys integrate with tools like Zapier and Make and stuff like that? So that way, like, this was what I'm envisioning, because I know a lot of contractors have like a Chirp, a Hatch, or like we have our own platform where we can send SMS and email.
Yep.
But I'm just wondering, because a full campaign works best when you hit people from all the mediums, because some people answer text, some people don't. Some people answer email, most people don't. But you hit them in 3 or 4 different areas, they're going to see it and at least know that you're different than other companies.
Exactly. So yes, to answer your question, we have many integrations, and we have a lot of different ways that you can integrate. But yes, we definitely have a Zapier app, so you can trigger us from there. We integrate with Service Titan, HubSpot, Klaviyo, like you name it. A lot of different ways that you can trigger a handwritten card, and that goes back to what we were saying kind of earlier, where if you set up a flow where you're kind of interleaved and you hit them with a lot of different types of, like, many different channels, that's where we typically see the best results.
Yeah, and that was my thought, is like, because otherwise you're sending like a postcard, but you don't have SMS and email, or you're sending an SMS, but you don't send postcard, you don't send email, like just all the different things. If it lines up where you're sending this, and then let's say it always takes, from the time you trigger it takes 2 days to get the postcard to them. On day 3, you can send a text message that follows up on the postcard or whatever.
Exactly.
Just lining up so that we can have a mass, because Church and I talk about customer journey a lot.
Yes.
Because a lot of people that want to learn automation, especially with AI layered in, they want to improve their customer journey without adding 4 or 5 overhead staff members to manually do all of the things that we're talking about.
Yep.
Because it's a lot more people to manage. It's not full-time work. Then they got to make sure they're doing a good job. And you can read the human's handwriting. Like, there's just a lot of things that management wise it become, and then of course your overhead goes way up when you're paying a $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 a year salary versus somebody that's, you're paying for like a service that's per card.
Exactly.
So that's really interesting. That's cool that you guys have the triggers and stuff to build these into like these massive workflows.
Yeah. And that's what we recommend anyway. That's where we see the best results. So, in that use case, for sure, that's exactly the way that we recommend using it. So after the job gets completed, the card gets triggered, and then we also have webhooks that we can talk back to whatever system you're triggering this from. So you can actually exactly know, okay, this card was sent on this date, so here's the time that I need to wait to follow up with an SMS asking if they got it, or an email asking if they got it. So we can get super granular.
You're saying that you'll actually you have the ability to update the system to tell it when you actually send it out.
Exactly. Yep.
They're not like, hey, they're probably going to go 3 days later or whatever.
Correct. Yeah. So it's two-way communication. So like you can trigger the card, and then when we send it, we can talk back and say, hey, this card was triggered. And then you can update the CRM system. So we've got folks that will like do that. So if they have a sales rep or an account manager or something, they know, oh, this card was sent on this date. So, I mean, like I said, you can go super far down the rabbit hole for sure.
Yeah.
You don't have to start there, but the ability is there if you want. But on the post-job completion, that's kind of what we see, right? So job gets completed, automatically card gets triggered. So, one of these cards arrives on the doorstep after the job is completed. But we have identified 3 specific things that correlate to a better response rate and more business. So number 1, the card that gets delivered, the support number needs to be right on the front. So it's like, 888, whatever your support number is. That's number 1. Number 2, they put a QR code in the bottom corner of the card, typically with the referral program. So, scan here to get $100 for referring somebody. And then number 3 is on the inside of the note. You actually refer to it and say, hey, thanks so much for letting us complete your job. On the, keep this card handy. On the front is our support number. Reach out if there's ever any issue, or let us know. And then if you have other services that you offer, so if you offer, electrical, plumbing, HVAC, etc., that's a good time to also mention it. And what happens is people actually keep these cards around. So it's not uncommon for people to reach out, 10 months, 11 months after getting the card saying, hey, like, you were here, 10 months ago, I have this other issue. Like, could you come out and give me a quote for it? So it's unlike email or SMS, where basically you either get a response pretty much immediately and then it's gone. People actually keep these on their refrigerator, on their, coffee table, and they actually will pick up and call like you told them to. We did this for a Point Broadband, which is a broadband installer, and they right now are seeing a 3% conversion rate from people just scanning the like refer a friend link and just referring them new business. So people are literally like getting this card, they're putting it on the refrigerator or their coffee table because you told them to. The support number's on the front, and then the little, get $100 for referring a friend if you scan here. And lo and behold, when people are like walking by or like when it's top of mind, they scan it and it's like, oh, someone just moved in across the street. I want $100, and they scan it and they refer somebody. So that's kind of the second playbook that we run. That's super common. The third playbook that we typically run is a 6-month check-in. So after the job gets completed, waiting 6 months and then triggering one of these notes as just a nice touch point, because nobody does it, right? It's very, very rare that you get that kind of, check-in. Typically what people do is they filter, so they don't do it for every single job. It's jobs above a certain kind of threshold, but it's a really nice touch point. It sets you apart from everybody else. And it's a specifically targeted checkpoint to get them into a service subscription or a maintenance plan that you have, right? Kind of using it like, hey, you just made this investment, or you just, completed this job. We also offer service plans to make sure that you protect your investment. That's a great time to get people, who were happy and like they remembered, I did this 6 months ago, but I'm not protected. I haven't signed up for the maintenance plan yet. Now's a good time to jump into it. So that's kind of the third playbook that we run with folks when they sign up with us. And then the fourth playbook is actually a churn prevention playbook. So when somebody is in that maintenance plan, typically we'll work with them and we'll say, okay, let's take a look at your data. What's the average length of time that folks are in your plan, in your maintenance subscription before they cancel? So let's say it's 18 months, and then that's kind of the average churn point. What we'll do is we'll automatically set up an experience where on month 17 you automatically get a card that says, hey Josh, thanks so much for being awesome part of our community here and letting us maintain your systems. Here's 20% off your next year of service, right? So you immediately jump them over the point where they would have canceled. They don't know that they were at that point, but you do. You automatically jump them over that point, and it immediately increases your lifetime value. And then as you do that, each year you kind of run the data again to kind of see where that average point is, and you can kind of keep extending it and kicking it out and pushing it out.
That's really cool. I can definitely see some use case, because I was actually just talking to someone about, like, somebody was asking a question about churn rates on memberships, and because it's such a challenging thing in the trades, because people get it because they want the discount that day, and then maybe they're like, it's a good idea, we'll get a tune-up later and all this stuff, and then they're like, next year they're like, I didn't do anything with it, so I'm just going to cancel. And then trying to remind them is like, okay, now we got to go through, we got to pick up the phone, we got to start calling everybody because all these are expired, and they're going to call in and hope they get their benefits renewed. And plus it's also nice to remember them to, certain times a year, like we can send a mailer to, hey, it's time to get your tune up.
Exactly.
And we can pair that with an email and an SMS campaign, so you hit them again multiple times, because there's no way to say stop to a direct mail card.
Correct. Yeah.
You cannot D&D yourself from that touch point, which email you can block and put in spam. You could do that with text message, but you cannot block somebody from sending a direct mail piece. Yeah.
And actually going the other way is a super common use case that we see a lot as well. So if someone has opted out of your SMS and you want to get them back into the fold, sending them a mail piece with a QR to scan with like some type of offer or something for them to scan, and then say, hey, scan this or text this number and I'll send you, a discount for, whatever. is a great way to get them to opt back in. So you go from having a group of folks that you no longer can reach because they have opted out to a way that now you have them back in that channel.
That's interesting. Have you seen anybody use like lost leaders for like that QR code to scan, other than like the referrals? Like, so if they're not going to use it for referrals, but they're like, all right, so we these people have unsubscribed or whatever, and if we can get a loss leader in here, then they'll resubscribe to that. Have you seen anybody do that?
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of one of the biggest things that we see is kind of bringing dead leads back, or like, like these folks are not engaging with me with email. I can't reach them via SMS. So it's kind of like, hey, we might as well send them something directly that they can't ignore. So that's kind of a huge use case for us.
Perfect. Sweet.
Yeah.
Josh, you got any other questions?
Yeah. Well, I was just thinking even others use like, because I think of all the campaigns that we run for clients through digital means, like we're coming up on the end of summer when we're recording this in 2025, and all those estimates from summer, because contractors get really busy when it's hot, and those estimates stack up, and very few people follow up on those at a very good clip. They'll maybe follow up once or twice, but the salespeople are off to the next estimate, and they're just, oh, give me the next one, and all of a sudden it slows down, and it's like, oh shit, we got to go back to all the other estimates and go see if they did anything now. This could be a nice way to also put in another touch point to just make sure that the customer knows we didn't forget about them. And again, the handwritten thing, I think is a really kind of a nice point, because
you could do a welcome to the
stand out.
Handwritten thing, like welcome to the neighborhood, for anybody. Like you could trigger it for when somebody moves into a house.
We can do that. So like as part, we talked a lot about the handwritten notes that we sent, but actually IgnitePOST is a full service suite. So we have property data. So if you need to, we can target based on property data. So if you say, okay, this is my service area, but I'm interested in reaching out specifically to homes that are, 2-bedroom, 1-bath, that are in this, geographic area, that are assessed for more than, this amount, that are residential, not commercial, like we can get very, very granular. So we can kind of give you the data list of those addresses to target. So that's one.
Can you get like age of home and stuff like that too? Like when it was built?
Yep. Age
I'm
of
just
home.
thinking like, especially for, we usually talk about HVAC, but like, sometimes electricians want homes that are 40, 50 years old because they got old panels.
Yep.
HVAC would be probably more towards like the 12 to 15 ish, or maybe 10 to 15 area. Plumbing, I have no idea.
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah.
Maybe houses that were built on slabs, if they do slab leak repair, because those are always nice jobs, or maybe older homes that need especially if codes in their market or in their municipality have changed, and that they got to upgrade everything to a different code or different material based on changes in laws and stuff like that. They would probably have a better idea what that looks like. So that's good data to have, because it's hard to come by.
Oh yeah. Yeah. No. So we have
Otherwise,
that for sure.
Again, we talked about like duct taping all this stuff. We got now we got a provider for this data, then we got a direct mail, and then we got a this, and then we got that. We got all these things, but now we have to figure out how the flow goes so we don't trip on ourselves and send someone something before they needed it, or way too late after they've already done something else. So it's nice to be able to trigger that stuff all in one place.
Yeah. So that's kind of one big part of our platform as well. So property data. And then the other thing you could actually do from that is, of course, do radius mailers around specific jobs that you've done. So I talked earlier, I don't typically recommend peppering like an entire neighborhood just kind of blindly, but if you've done a job at, 123 Main Street, you can kind of set a radius, like maybe like a 1 mile radius around that home, and then reach out and say, hey, we just helped the Joneses at, 123 Main Street, was in your neighborhood, and, really liked your home, thought you could use a hand. Here's my contact information. We've seen a lot of really good success with those types of, radius mailers around a specific job that you've done. So that's kind of the other way that you can use the property data aspect of the platform. And then
you have to make sure that you did a good job there.
Exactly. Yeah.
Otherwise, you'll be the talk of the neighborhood, just not in a good way.
Exactly. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. that by default, make sure you do a good job first, and then you can reach out and tell everybody about it. Yeah. If you do a bad job, then yeah, don't do nothing. Yeah. And then the third piece of our suite, our platform, is actually an anonymous visitor identification tool, because the number one thing I always get asked is, well, how do I know how well this is working? This is an offline form of communication. Well, how do I know what my response rate is? How do I track what my ROI is? How do I do attribution? So as part of our platform, we also have the ability to drop a pixel on a website and identify about 40% of anonymous traffic that goes to that site. So this gives us the ability to, send mailers to a group of folks, drop the pixel on a site, and then even if somebody doesn't take the call to action, they don't call, they don't scan the QR code, but they visit your site, we can actually say, well, hey, here are all the visitors that are now on your site or that have visited your site. Here are the folks that were in the campaign. And so you can kind of do that type of attribution and get an idea of what kind of effect this is having, even if people don't take the intended call to action that you leave.
That's neat.
Yeah. So that's kind of like our full service suite, so that everything can kind of work together. You can use the different technologies by themselves, but it's really designed to be kind of holistically work together.
Yeah. And so I guess what I'm hearing and a takeaway for anyone listening to this is, when you think direct mail, don't think mass mailers.
Correct. Yeah.
Think like you would for other campaigns, because anything that's personalized and it's related to something that you've done or you are going to do, or something that they've hired you for, or something they bought from you in the past, to me, that seems like the approach to go, or the place to go. I mean, that's what we do on the digital side for clients, and it always works better. Like our email and SMS open rates and response rates are way higher when we just did work for them and we're sending them a follow-up or we're asking for a review. But if we wait 6 months and then try to reach out to them, a lot of times you get a lot less open and response rate.
Exactly.
And then the more detail you can get from those campaigns, like to your point about the reviews, if you can pull in a job type from the CRM, like, hey, thanks for hiring us for your AC repair. You don't have to go into details, but like just use the job type inside of house call, service type, Sarah, et cetera, something like that, where it just makes it a little bit more relevant. Or put the technician's name inside of there. Like, Tersh, really enjoyed your visit.
Yes.
Just little things like that you can, because that's the thing with digital. And I think a lot of contractors miss the boat on that, is all of these things are endpoints that you can typically grab for something.
Correct.
So instead of just sending, would you leave me a Google review? You can put something about, Tersh was out there on Friday and for AC repair, and like, just, wow, somebody actually took the time to actually put this together for me.
If you think he did a good job, could you leave us a review? Yeah.
Correct. So that's just a takeaway that I see. The people that are being successful are the ones that aren't just mass mailing all over the place. They're being personalized. They're thinking about what those customers have hired them for. They're actually thinking through the journey instead of just like, just send some mailers.
Right. Exactly.
Here's some zip codes, send some mailers. And half those homes are apartments and the other half are low income housing. And, they don't get the results. And they're like, direct mail's dead. Doesn't work.
Right.
Ironically, like we talk about direct mail being dead, just like people are talking about SEO is dead now. Just everything's always dead when something new comes out. Email's dead, even though it still works fantastically. Tersh and I have data to prove that from our own newsletter. Shoot, I don't remember where I was going to go with that. I was talking too much. But this stuff doesn't die. Like marketing I know where I was going to go. I heard from a CMO of a $200 million roofing company that the yellow pages, the actual
physical book,
yellow pages, still gives them
good results.
It still gives him an 8-to-1 return.
Really?
So and they're in like 30 states. So it just, marketing is, and I know this is why contractors hate marketing, because it is not an exact science. It is a test, track. Once it works, double down on that shit, triple down on it, just throw as much money as you can without going broke on it, and just see how far you can take it. But it's okay to try other things. It doesn't always have to be just digital or just offline or just word of mouth. You can you got to test stuff, and that means you're going to have to spend some money, and it may not work. But if you do it in a smart way, I think that stuff can really pay off.
I agree.
Absolutely. Oh man, we appreciate you hanging out with us.
Yeah, where's
Josh?
the best place for people to learn more about you guys, and if they want to do a demo of your platform and all that kind of stuff, where should they go?
Yeah, actually, can I give away a freebie to folks?
Oh yeah,
Please.
Okay. So if anybody's listening, if anybody wants a free handwritten note sent to them so you can actually see for yourself how things work, hit our site, which is ignitepost.com/sample. Fill in your information, and one of the robots will write and mail you a sample directly to your door. But the best place, if you want to find out more information, is just our website, ignitepost.com. If you want a demo, there's a button right on that, in the header and the homepage. Click on demo, and we'll connect with you and take you through some of the playbooks and some of the things that we talked about here. There's also a button for sample. So if you want a free sample, click that, and one of the robots will mail you a free sample.
I'm about to get 1,000 cards sent to me.
Yes.
I just kept clicking. I refresh.
Send. Yeah.
I'm gonna put you guys out of business.
I love it.
Arian, we appreciate you hanging out with us and sharing everything.
Of course.
If anybody has any questions at all, don't hesitate to reach out. And if it's something that you kind of put off, you haven't done it in several years, give it a shot, see how it does. So that being said, I hope you have a wonderful and safe week until we talk again next time. We'll see you.
Thanks for having me.